Hello and welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the crossroads of curation and castration. My name is Ben.
And my name is Curt.
And this week we are talking about a Japanese role-playing game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System from the early 90s? Early to mid? I forget exactly what year it came out. 94, 95? I think it was 94. We are talking about Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
Yes. Very exciting. This is a fantastic game that I have played at least most of before. I don't think that I've played to the end of this video game, but I'm pretty fond of what I have played before. And Curtis, this is your first time ever playing any of it.
Yeah, I think I played a little bit of it in high school, and I didn't make it very far before. I think my file was corrupted, and then I just never did it again.
Yeah.
But this is part of an ongoing journey in my life to not re-experience, but experience some of the classic Super Nintendo
Fill
RPGs.
in some of those gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, gaps of knowledge. Because these are important video games. These video games have inspired a lot of more modern video games, especially Chrono Trigger. We're going to have to get Earthbound on this show at some point. Because if you're going to talk about video games that inspired a lot of video games, Earthbound is right up there.
I would love to talk Earthbound.
Yeah.
I have beaten Earthbound.
And I have not.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
In 2 years, when we finish the Chrono Trigger series.
Yeah, at the rate we're going right now, it's gonna be,
Well,
we really are going to be talking about this episodically. About once a month, we will do one or two episodes or adventures from Chrono Trigger. But anyway, first off, Curtis, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm pretty good. We had Record Store Day was on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I did my whole get up stupid early and drive around Maine looking for records I don't need.
Yep.
Pretty great.
Did you get anything?
Yeah. I got all but 3 of the things I was looking for. What did I get? I don't know. A bunch of stuff. Some Wu-Tang stuff. Czarface stuff.
Czarface is great.
It is.
I was listening to some Czarface over the it's not. Pull back the curtain a little bit. We took last week off recording, so it's been 2 weeks since we last recorded an episode.
I know.
So it's been a while, and we've got some shit that happened to me a week and a half ago I need to get off my chest.
We'll let you in on the secret, everybody.
Yep.
The Boondock Saints 2 episode and the War Party episode, back-to-back recording.
Back-to-back recordings. We took a bathroom break in between, but other than that,
we used the power of technology to split it up and lie to your faces.
A little bit of podcast magic.
We lied to your ears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen you in a long time, Ben. I missed you. I missed the show.
Yep.
I was on vacation last Wednesday, and I was like, man, I'd be recording with Ben right now if I weren't on this stupid vacation with my wife.
Ugh. Marriage.
So... It's been a while,
and I guess the whole point of that was that over the quote unquote break, I listened to Czarface.
Yeah,
I listened to the Czarface plus Doom.
Yeah, the new
Czarface
one.
meets Metalface.
Yeah,
so good.
Pretty good, right?
It's really, really
I'll
good.
tell you, that's not even their best album.
I don't know about that.
I think Every Hero Needs a Villain is
Okay.
the best.
That's a Czarface album.
We'll do our Czarface series.
I'm so excited about it.
Now,
and that actually got not to go off on too much of a tangent, but that got me to listen to Mad Villainy as well, which was something that
had you ever listened to that before?
I think I've listened to songs off it. Like the Spotify Discover playlist just keeps throwing songs at me from it, and I like it, but having the Czarface meets Metalface experience kind of clued me in on a little more of what to listen to when it came to an MF Doom verse.
Mad Villainy takes a little longer to unwrap.
They're very short songs.
Than a lot of hip hop.
Yeah.
So what else? Anything else?
No, that's all for me. What about you?
I'll tell you after the show because nobody wants to hear about it. But I had a fucking weird dream about you.
No. We need to talk about this. You texted me about this, and you were like, "I can't believe we need to wait 2 weeks to talk about this dream." So I want to talk about it. I was thinking about that. If you didn't mention it, I was going to bring it up.
So you want to talk about it on the show?
Are you comfortable talking about this dream on the show?
Yeah. I mean, as long as that's okay with you.
I think the Dream Corner is a very important part of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts,
okay,
especially
so
given the fact that we dedicated 2 months of our podcast to David Lynch, the King of Dreams.
So we're gonna intro the show, talk about what we're talking about, then we do the check-in. Now we do the Dream Corner.
Yep.
And then we'll get into the meat of the show.
Yeah, we'll add more and more. Oh, food metaphors coming in here already.
Yep, and then we'll go off on weird like ethical, moral, philosophical dilemmas, and then we'll wrap it up.
Which will... And the final segment is announcement of next episode.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we can do this. So I wrote it down.
Oh, good.
So I had this dream, starring you and I, and I never write my dreams down, but I woke up and I was like, that was a really fucking weird dream. And then I was like, I could tell I was going to fall back asleep, so I wrote it all down before I forgot it. So this was 2 weeks ago, but this notepad on my phone was fresh in my bed at like 4 a.m. So I'll paint the scene for you and the listeners. You and I are walking through the woods. We're just walking down a trail in the woods. It's a beautiful fall day, colorful foliage, leaves all over the ground. We're just walking on this dirt path. For some reason, you and I decide to break off this path down a footpath that goes deeper into the woods. Down this footpath, we find a blue, like, plastic sled, like a child's sled, and you decide that I need to get in the sled so you can drag me in the sled, okay?
Okay.
This is not my idea. I'm like, I don't know, man. There's no snow. It's just, and you're like, no, I'll just pull you through the leaves. It's cool.
You gotta have faith in the snow, Curtis.
Yeah, so you're dragging me around, and as we go down this footpath, the ground starts to become too hilly and muddy. So we just like you want to keep going, but I like point out. I'm like, no, there's like hills and like there's some like really deep muddy ruts and stuff. Like it's just, let's not do it. So we ditch the sled, keep going down the footpath, and we come across this old shitty house in the middle of the
kind of a Hansel and Gretel thing.
Yeah, totally, I guess. This old shitty house in the middle of nowhere, and it's run down. There's just junk everywhere, mountains of old garbage and junk. There's like a big barn behind the house that's dilapidated. And so we're like walking around and like looking at all these like mountains of trash. And we realize we're standing on we're standing on like the side of the driveway, and we're on this like little hill with like a couple like trees on it, and you're looking around just like surveying this sea of shit, and I look down.
That's the title of the episode, by the way.
And I realize we're standing on a couple homemade graves. And they're
sorry, homemade graves?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Meaning that they were like very tribal, like they weren't clearly burial mounds. They were like very tribal looking. They were similar to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They were like trinkets hanging from the trees.
They made you think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Once I woke up, I was like, that was very Texas Chainsaw-y. They were like sticks tied, like
that's a good association.
Sticks tied together, and like instead of headstones, there were like buckets that had been turned upside down and had like red faces painted on them, similar to like Japanese oni paintings. Now. So I realized they had like the big open mouths. They looked like demons.
This is incredible,
upside
Curtis.
down bucket.
This is fucking gold.
I was hoping you'd enjoy this. So once we realized that we're standing on these horrific graves, we're like, let's get the fuck out of here. And as we are leaving, we hear the door of the house open. We think it's abandoned, but clearly it's not. And I want to say 20-year-old like girl walks out of the house, right? And not at all what you would expect her to look like. Just like black leggings, gray hoodie, like black ponytail. She had like a little tiny like Shih Tzu like on a leash that she was holding. Like she was just very normal. Like she was just getting ready to go for a jog with the dog.
Not the person you would expect to live in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
Right. Just like super normal. Just super fine. And she says something she comes out like the front door. It's a screen door, and she says something to her like mom, I guess, like through the door, and we don't see the mom. And then I wrote down that I can't remember if we actually talked to her or just follow her to talk to her to be like, why do you live out here? But like, there's nothing scary about her. Like, we're not afraid to like communicate with the person who lives here.
But you are scared of the house,
of this house.
So we are feeling fear.
Yes, but like when we see her, we're like, oh, okay, well, it can't be that bad.
Scary because someone normal lives here.
Let's go talk to her. So as we're standing next to her, we hear her dad approaching the property in this like shitty ancient red pickup truck. My phone keeps flipping. Mm-hmm. And it's just like a old like 30s Ford pickup truck, and the back of it, the bed is just also full of random junk and garbage and
shit. Is it kind of like the dad from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre's truck?
I don't remember. Probably, if it's just a shitty old pickup truck. Okay. So when she sees him coming, she flat out, the only thing I remember her saying in the dream is she says that you guys are in trouble now when we see the dad. So at this point, we become very scared. Uh-huh. And he hops out of the truck, and he is very angry that we are there. And he's very angry that we're talking to his daughter. So he gets out of the truck, and he pulls a bow out of the back bed of the truck. And at this point, we're like really shitting bricks. We're like, we are going to get shot with arrows. But he doesn't grab any arrows. He literally just throws the bow at us. And it's like a very awkward, like, oh, I thought he was going to shoot us, and then he threw the bow at us. And then he proceeds to just start taking shit out of the truck and just throwing it at us. Like, but he's like too far away, and like it's too clumsy to be like scary. It's just very weird. So he throws a skateboard at us, okay?
Tony Hawk 2 GBA.
Tony Hawk 2 GBA.
It's coming to the forefront of the dream.
And I see this skateboard flying through the air, and it has neon green grip tape.
Yeah.
And as it's like flipping, I see that it has my name written on the bottom of the board, like in Sharpie. And I realize it's my old skateboard that he has thrown at me. And at this point, you ever have like dream realizations where things start to just like, oh shit. I realize at this point that all this junk is my old shit. It's just stuff that I've either thrown in the garbage or taken to the dump or just thrown out in the woods.
Yeah, yeah.
This guy has
it's your refuse. He's been collecting it, and now he's throwing it at you.
My garbage. So we still like run away, but like we start laughing because the whole thing is no longer scary. It's just awkward and weird, but we still don't want to like be there. And so he's pissed and he's throwing shit at us, but like we know that it's, pointless. So we run back the way we came. And at this point, I realize that I'm dreaming. And I'm like, why the fuck am I having this fucking weird dream? And I'm thinking about, like, in my dream, I'm thinking about how dreams use images and things in dreams can be, you can have dreams by things you've seen in real life. And the bright green grip tape on my old skateboard felt, like, super relevant to me in the dream. So I start to, like, wonder as we're, like, running away, like, what do I have in my real life?
This was like, as you were waking up, probably.
As, like, that's bright green, that's significant. And all I could think of was, like, a pair of, like, bright green, like, boxer shorts that I used to own. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what that means.
So for some reason, the boxer shorts were the first thing to come to your mind.
But in the dream, that was fucking hilarious. That was the only thing that I could think of that had to be significant was an old pair of underwear. So we're just, like, laughing out loud and running away from this guy. And we, like... There was, like, a little, like, ramp thing with, like, a little creek with, like, a ramp next to it. So we just, like, jumped off the ramp, like, over this little creek.
Yeah, as though we were skateboarding.
Yeah. No skateboards, though. And so we're, like, on the other side of the creek. So, like, we just know we're safe, even though he's still chasing us.
Because we've crossed the water. We know that he cannot cross the water.
And the old guy sees us cross over, and he's still super pissed, but... He just, like, gets out of the truck and he's, like, swearing at us and, like, waving his hands. But, like, he still just, like, gives up. And then he gets back in his truck and turns it around. And drives away. And then I woke up. That was it.
What does thinking of the dream make you think of, other than that? Are you... your eyes are watering a little bit.
My throat got very dry.
Okay,
during
all
that
right,
story.
okay, all right. I was just making sure because sometimes, like, I know that I'll sometimes get while I'm talking about a dream, I'll get a flash realization of something very like low level in my brain that makes me think of something from my past or something. But if it's just a dry throat, then like
I don't just super weird. And I've been like so for like 2 weeks now, I've been kind of thinking about it once in a while.
Yeah.
And just being like, man, I got nothing.
Well, let me tell you what that makes me think of.
Let me hear
a couple
because
things.
you're more into the dream interpretation.
Very into
I don't
the dream
very
interpretation.
often, so
Man, but when you do,
yeah, right.
you've given me two of my favorite dreams I've ever heard at this point. One, the apocalypse, pushing the shopping cart and realizing that your name is meaningless because there's no one to hear it or say it. I forget if it was hear it or say it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a certain conflation of those two ideas anyway. And now this masterpiece of a dream. So what this makes me think of, I don't have like a comprehensive interpretation, but I think we could probably, I'm not going to subject people to too much dream interpretation on this podcast, but thing number one is that structures are very meaningful in dreams. Structures tend to represent parts of your internal mind. And when you are in a structure, the state of it is analogous to the state of that part of your mind. So if you're in a house and it's very well ordered, that implies that you're spending a great deal of time in a part of your mind that you've spent a lot of time in, and it's very well ordered in there. Whereas if you're having dreams about discovering, sometimes people will have a dream where they're in their house and they just discover a new part of it. That implies that you are expanding into other parts of your consciousness that you have not been to very much recently, that you've kind of left them to rot a little bit. And often those rediscovered parts of their minds will be represented by a very disorderly house, which seems to be the case here. Now, the fact that I dragged you on a sled in the dream to this place implies to me that that something about what we've been talking about has made you go to a part of your mind, of your memory, or of your consciousness, or of your thinking patterns that you haven't been going to recently. And then the fact that it was a scary place makes me think of something I've heard often about dreams and about life in general, specifically from Jordan Peterson, that what you most need to know exists where you least want to look. Just interesting food for thought there, right?
I'm loving the dream interpretation.
Yeah.
I don't get into this. After the show, I'll tell you my other two scariest dreams, which involve alien abduction. Mm-hmm. So,
alien abduction is fascinating because what we now see as alien abduction it's perfectly analogous to demonic visits. Before we had this whole idea of aliens and UFOs, those dreams still existed. People just interpreted them as visits from demons. So when you have an alien dream, you're part of a proud tradition of that type of dream. Those are not dreams that I have very often, though I had one terrifying dream the other night that maybe I'll tell you about after the show. But yeah, those are kind of the things that dream makes me think of. And then the guy, that's interesting. The guy in the truck. So we were in the scary place, and then the girl walked out of the house, and calm seems to have come over us. And then the guy came in, the man in the truck, and we got very scared again because she let us know, like, oh, you guys are in trouble now. But then when we realized that he was ineffectual, that he couldn't hurt us, we felt it seemed funny, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, all very interesting. All very interesting.
Tombstones, too. Which is, for the tombstones.
The tombstones, yeah. What did the tombstones make you think of?
Man, I don't know. I think
there's a lot packed up in there that I can't unpack.
The thing that I think is like constant throughout the dream that I had noticed was any colors in the dream were very vibrant. It was definitely a blue sled and like definitely bright green skateboard grip tape.
It's interesting that this part of your mind was so deeply hidden away from you as well. Like even from the moment I introduced the sled into your life, you were skeptical about it, right? You're like, there's no snow. What the fuck are we doing? There's hills and shit all over the place. Why do we keep going? Let's just go back to the path. But I presumably I insisted. I just kept pulling you and pulling you. And eventually we ended up at this house where we had a scary experience, but ultimately something that we ended up safe. How did you feel at the end of the dream?
Everything was way too funny. Everything was just hilarious. And then I just like woke up with this just like, oh, okay, well, that was fucking weird. Like, it wasn't like a groggy wake up or like a jump awake. It was just like, oh, I guess I'm awake now.
But you felt good at the end of the dream.
Yeah.
Or was it like you were scared of how funny everything was?
No, I wasn't scared of it.
Any
and it was just like a, well, that was strange. Like, it was just a very...
Because for a person who doesn't dream very often, like having an incredibly vivid and specific dream like that is really shocking. And the fact that you thought to write it down as well, the fact that you thought like, oh, this is important, I should preserve this so that we can talk about this later, is also very meaningful. You felt that it was a meaningful dream in the moment, which means that it was meaningful, in my opinion. So the graves, though.
Yeah.
The very vivid colors. You said that the Oni faces were red.
Yeah.
And they had shit hanging off of them that made you think that is compared to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is, by the way, one of the things that I love about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is its use of this dream imagery. I'm not even sure that it does it intentionally, but these kids discover this unexplored, run-down shack, which implies like, okay, we go into this unexplored part of our minds, and one of the possibilities is that they do just overwhelm us, which is what happens in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is what makes it a very effective movie, because that is a possibility. Sometimes you delve back into your consciousness, and what you find there breaks you. Like, that is a possibility that has to be acknowledged. But okay, the graves. I'm sorry if
No, that's fine.
What do they make you think of? Can you still picture the graves?
Yeah.
What do they make you think of when you do?
So I know. So the graves themselves were upturned buckets.
Buckets, right? And they weren't on a more traditional graves marker or anything.
We just like they were next to these like trees. So there were things hanging from the branches of the trees that looked like little, trinkets and stuff. And then the bucket was what signified that it was a tombstone.
Do any specific trinkets stand out?
No. There was just shit hanging.
What color were the buckets?
The buckets were red with the faces painted red.
With red
too.
faces.
And the only thing the two things that I can think of that are significant about the buckets are that the mouths of the Oni faces were actually like banged out of the bucket. Like this, there were like a literal hole in the bucket where the mouth of the Oni face was. The other thing was that the only time I can think of my life of seeing these exact buckets, they were not red. We had a wood stove growing up, and my dad had this like gray metal pail that he would like fill up with ashes from the wood stove and go dump them in the woods.
Yeah.
And it was that bucket, just red and painted with Oni faces. It was just it was definitely that bucket.
Wow.
So.
And the mouths were bashed out.
Yeah.
Do you think there was anything under the buckets?
A dead body.
No, I mean above ground.
I don't know.
Do you have any idea whose bodies were under there? But you knew there were bodies under there.
Yeah.
How did you know?
I don't know how I know. I just know that the realization that once I looked down, I was like, oh, all these trinkets and buckets signify that these are like homemade burial mounds.
And each of us was standing on one of them. Or we were just kind of standing in the area.
I believe we were both standing on them, but not specifically like me on one, you on one. We were just standing.
We were both straddling both of them. Our legs
we were just
out.
standing on top of these tombstones.
Uh-huh.
I hope our listeners are listening to this at like 5 a.m. on their way to work, and they're now terrified.
you mean our listener who goes to work at 5 a.m. Yeah. Loved having you on the show, bud. It was very fun. But when you realized they were graves, you thought we should get off of them.
Yes, this was
why.
not just off of them, but once we realized
we need to get away from them,
away from this place, because once we realized
that was when we realized that this was a dangerous place.
Yeah, like this is a scary place, and then the girl came out, and we're like, oh well, it must be okay then. So like she's here, you thought like she's fine.
People have died here, or what was it that just made it seem
something
scary?
Was buried, and it seemed
that there was something buried
in a way that like. Normal things that get buried do not get buried like this. Yeah. So it was very like, there's probably something bad at this place overall.
So there are a couple things that I want you to do if you ever have a dream in this environment again, because it's clear to me that your brain has put an enormous amount of power into constructing this area. Your subconscious has put a lot of resource into constructing this area. So if you ever find yourself there again, if you feel up to it, now that you know that there's nothing to fear from the man, if you feel up to it in the dream, what I want you to think of doing is, especially if you get into lucid dreaming at all and you're able to actually explore freely, what I want you to think of doing is exhuming whatever's buried in those graves.
Fuck that.
just thinking about that makes you scared.
That was definitely a place I did not want to hang out at once I realized that.
Okay. No, just if you I would be very interested to know what's in there. Right? Because
I hope you have the dream so you can find out, because
the association with your father and the buckets is fascinating too.
Okay.
Think about if you're ever at a place where you feel comfortable doing that. And believe me, I understand that like that all-consuming fear is not something that's easily pushed to the side, because you can say to yourself it's just a dream. Even if you know that you're just dreaming, that fear is at a deeper level than your knowledge that you are dreaming. Other things I'd like you to do. How would you feel about going inside the house?
I mean, also not good. The thing that's hard for me is I don't dream very often, and when I do, they feel like either third person or first person movies. I very, very rarely feel like I have any control in dreams. I'm usually just watching it all unfold and reeling in horror as it does.
A lot of nightmares. Kurt's having a lot of nightmares. We can talk after the show about some good ways to if you're interested in doing this, to increase your, this is just full Dreamcast right now.
I love that we're almost 30 minutes into Dreamcast.
Oh, people are going to love this one. We can talk about some ways, and hey, listeners, if you want more Dreamcast, please get at me.
Yeah,
I don't know if there are other podcasts
we'll
where
do
people
dream
just,
episodes.
like, yeah,
I got those
where people just freely talk about their dreams with each other.
I got those alien dreams that I'll let you know about after the show. We'll decide if they're B and C till H worthy.
Dreamcast worthy.
Yeah.
What was I saying? I can tell you about some good ways to increase the amount that you dream, because it really is just something that you can make happen.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about ways to induce lucid dreaming if you're interested in that as well. It's very fun. Very fun. It's sometimes quite scary, but very fun.
It's very fun.
Well, it's like
very scary, but it's
fucking
fun.
Terrifying. But it's also a great sense of power, and you can do cool stuff. Like it sounds, maybe this is a lame thing to say, but I think it's really fun to get into a dream, start out scared, do a quick hand check and realize that you're dreaming, and then just realize that you can make whatever is scaring you, you can just make it go away, because you're in your own head. You can control whatever you want to control. With that said, sometimes... No, we don't need to talk about that here. Sometimes some things that you do when you are lucid dreaming might scare you themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Like, you know, like looking in mirrors or...
Looking in mirrors, yeah. There have been times where uninhibited by physical reality, I have done things in dreams that I would not do in real life, and they have caused me to kind of look at who I am and the way I look at the world, and ultimately I have changed for the better because of these experiences. But there have been a couple days after lucid dreams where I'm like, am I really that kind of person? You know?
Let's wrap up this fucking video game cast so we can just shut it off and do Dreamcast for ourselves.
Yeah. If you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely let's start this as a regular segment on Ben and Curt Till It Hurts.
I love
because
it.
You know what? I call it a culture cast at the beginning of the show, but dreams are culture.
Hey,
whatever.
Who cares? It's our show. Fuck it.
If this is the result of the David Lynch series, that makes me so happy. By the way,
I like doing. I don't mind the idea of doing it because you interpret dreams more than I do, so it's nice to have like someone who's ventured there and knows what symbols symbolize.
At a very basic level.
Oh
like,
yeah, but I mean more than me.
I am an apprentice.
We can definitely say, because as I've said, I don't dream very often, but when I do, it's like
crazy vivid. Yeah,
and also just we're two different people. The way we interpret those dreams is an interesting. I have a literal fear of alien abduction, so like that's when I have those dreams. That's just what I perceive it as. But I'm interested to share those dreams with you, so we can get the demonic take on it. Now,
quick, just one last. Are you going to move on from Dreamcast?
Yes, but you got one last thing.
One last thing. It is so interesting to me and so edifying to compare. Let's phrase it like this: think about the house. And then recognize that in Mulholland Drive, that's the feeling that the guy has about the dumpster behind the restaurant. It's that exact same feeling.
Yeah.
That feeling of like, I'm not exactly sure why, but I know that rot lives here. I know that this is the place where bad things are and where bad things happen. I just think that's so interesting that one of the most common experiences people have in dreams is a place that just exudes terror. Anyway.
I have anxiety now.
This has been a fun Dreamcast.
Yeah. So we should probably talk about Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger. What do you think of Chrono Trigger?
So far, I'm a big fan of it. I'm not a huge RPG guy.
Pretty much just Terranigma, right?
I mean, I've never even really played Terranigma. So like, when I had a Super Nintendo when it was like the current thing, but like I was just a little too young to be playing RPGs, so I was like playing a lot of platform. I played Mario and stuff like that. At the age when I started playing RPGs, the two that I really got into were Pokemon and then like Super Mario RPG. So when all of these like amazing RPGs were coming out, I was like, as a person, anyone who knows video games, like Pokemon's a pretty simple RPG. Super Mario RPG is also quite simple. So I had never played any of the Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, Secret of Mana, Terranigma. Any of these are all pretty new to me. And I'm very happy with it so far. Some of it I think I don't like love yet, but there are parts of it that are really like bringing me in. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, okay. So what we're talking about here is up to the point in when you go to the Middle Ages in Chrono Trigger, where you are saving the character known as Marl to the rest of us, who Curt has helpfully renamed.
I didn't even think about it. I always rename characters stupid names when I play games, so like not even thinking that I was going to have to know their names to talk about on the show. Yeah,
we're up to the point where you're under the cathedral saving Marl from...
We'll call her Wendy. No.
You're saving Wendy from the evil monsters that have kidnapped her.
Yes.
Right. You're saving the real one. No, you're not saving Marl. You're saving the real queen.
Right. So
Marl has gone back in time and been found.
It's a classic Terminator 2 situation here.
Anyway, let's give some background on Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
I really like Chrono Trigger. To answer your question in a straightforward way, I really like Chrono Trigger. I think that it hits this perfect level of feeling like an adventure at the beginning.
Yeah.
That then evolves into other feelings as you go along. But okay, what's special about Chrono Trigger? Thing number one for me.
Okay.
Is who made this game. Right? Are you familiar with the people, the staff on this game, the directors?
I don't remember their names because they are Japanese, but I was trying to do a little bit of research without spoiling too much of the game, so I was like skimming, and I did see that they were kind of known as like a dream team of...
That was what Square called them, I think.
Yeah, 3 producers that were considered a dream team.
Yeah. Do you remember why?
No.
All right. We've got Hironobu Sakaguchi, the director and creator of Final Fantasy. We've got Yuji Horii, the director of and creator of Dragon Quest. We've got Akira Toriyama designing the characters of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z fame. We've got Masato Kato writing the plot, who would go on to write plots like Chrono Cross, and Xenogears. And we've got fucking Yasunori Mitsuda writing the music, who would go on to make the soundtrack for Chrono Cross, which is one of the best soundtracks ever written by a human hand. And Nobuo Uematsu, I guess, finished the soundtrack.
Yeah,
after Mitsuda fell ill, and Uematsu was the one who did all the music for Final Fantasy. Yeah. So you've got like these battle themes and these victory themes and these inn themes and these overworld themes that just perfectly encapsulate what is special about those things in Japanese RPGs. They just perfectly communicate. The overworld feels like a perfect adventure. The inn feels like perfect comfort and safety.
And that was one of the first things that pulled me into the game, was the music. Every piece of music is like pleasurable to listen to. And to extend that to other, like, this game follows all, I mean, it probably established many of them, but it follows a lot of the, like, JRPG, like, tropes, like what make a classic.
It starts when you wake up.
Yep.
Your character wakes up at the beginning. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, and I mean, your first thing is you have to go look for somebody, which causes you to explore this, in this game it's a festival, but most games have this, you need to go find someone and you're located to this locked in centralized area to help you explore a little bit. And I really liked that. And it feels like it has all those familiarities of a JRPG, but it doesn't feel stale. It feels like just as good. I feel like when you play a game that, or you look at a style of game that has a lot of tropes or stereotypes, usually the first one you play is your favorite because it was the first time you experienced it. Mm-hmm. For me, that was probably like Breath of Fire 2. Mm-hmm. But with Chrono Trigger, I experience all those again, and it feels just as like warm and like welcoming to a game as it does the first time I.
What kinds of JRPG tropes are you talking about here?
Just those two, and then you'll have like something changes, and you don't really know what has changed, and nobody around you now knows you or recognizes you.
What moment in the game are you talking about? You're talking about when you go back in time.
Yeah, when you go back in time, right, and then you're trying. If you talk to NPCs, they're like, I don't remember what it was called, but like Festival of Time. What are you talking about?
The Millennial Festival.
The Millennial Festival.
Yeah.
So you're trying
Millennial Festival. What are you talking about? It's the year 600.
Yeah. You're trying to piece together where you are and what has happened, and nobody around you can really help you, but you're kind of pushed in a direction by something that has been out of your control. Yeah. I like that, but in this game it just feels super exciting. It doesn't feel like, oh well.
It feels like you're going off on an adventure.
Yeah, and
it's all pretty snappy, right? It doesn't dwell on these points very much. It doesn't. I don't think it dwells too much on any of the characters at first. It's all very situational. It's like, here, this happened, and then this happened, and now you've got to go back in time to save her.
Yeah.
And
the other thing that I noticed was sometimes, I don't know, this came out, I looked it up. It came out in 1995.
Okay.
And that's towards the end of the life cycle, I think, for the Super Nintendo, because Super Mario 64 came out in like 96, I think.
Yep.
And I love when you play games like this, or when I started Terranigma, when you play any game at the end of a console's life and you really see the peak performance of a game's engine, that jumped right out at me. The textures in the game are just beautiful, especially the trees.
Art, the like pixel art. It's interesting that you call them textures.
I
don't think they're really textures.
Yeah,
so much.
I don't have a proper wording for it. But yeah,
backgrounds.
The texture art is
backgrounds. The sprites look great.
Very
I have done some like I've taken the characters from Chrono Trigger and made them with perler beads.
Yeah,
for a friend.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Not with those characters, but
yeah, but doing that really shows you the economy of detail in the character art in this game. Is like every single detail, like Chrono's little scarf, the way his clothes fit on him is very specific. Yeah, very, very good art. Thank you to Akira Toriyama. That's the guy's name, right?
Probably.
Fuck. Why can't I keep these facts straight in my mind?
So, I do have...
It was Akira Toriyama.
I do have in my notes...
Vindicated.
Some of the things... I'm just like kind of, obviously, taking notes kind of as I notice little things as I play. Yep. And I have noticed a few things that I'm like not a huge fan of so far.
Okay.
As far as gameplay goes, but... Overall, I'm still very like into it and excited to be playing it.
What are some things you don't like? An
hour
hour and a half into the game.
I don't love the look of the overworld. I think it's so pulled back and the detail is so minimalized that, especially compared to when you're just in like the regular maps, everything is so detailed and beautiful. And then when they pull back, you kind of get like a minimal, less good looking. It's just a kind of a weird overworld, I think. And I think the battle system is okay. First of all, which battle style did you choose?
I used the wait.
Yeah, I do the turn-based one.
I don't understand the battle system in Chrono Trigger. I've played this game a couple times, and I just don't get it.
To me, it feels... The only thing that it reminds me of isn't even a video game. It reminds me more of like Magic the Gathering, where there's like I had said, I grew up playing like Pokemon and Super Mario RPG, so those are like hardcore turn-based. When it's your turn, it's your turn.
Yeah. You
have all the time you want to think about what you want to do, and you can do whatever you want. You can think a couple turns ahead of a plan. In this one, it's still turn-based like that, or time-based, but it feels more like, to me, like Magic the Gathering, in the sense that there are like equivalents of like instant cards where like it's still your turn and you're like, you can choose to attack, but you need to kind of hurry because your opponent can do things during your turn. If you wait too long, they can attack you if you wait too long.
Yeah, can they?
I think so.
I don't know, man. I think that's the active one. I think that the way it is with the... I honestly...
Hey, we're only like an hour into it.
We're an hour into this fucking game. I don't know.
Anyone who's played a JRPG knows that the first hour into the game, you've played for 10 minutes. Like, you've been getting a lot of story.
Well, see, I think that's one of the things Chrono Trigger does well, though, is that it gets you right into the adventure. The problem presents itself immediately.
Yeah, and I like that you don't have to worry about battling immediately. It's very story-based for you to learn kind of just how to walk around and who the characters are. And then when you go back to the Middle Ages, you get a little bit of the, like, oh, okay, so now I know how to fight something. And I really do like, speaking of the fighting, I really like that it doesn't cut to a battle stage. I really like that
cool.
You walk in. It's still, like, turn-based and not just like a slashing game, but you walk into an area and the enemies that are there, it'll freeze there, but you're still in a natural setting, which I feel like, I don't know if that's hard to design or not, but
like hard to program.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, but I just know that in a lot of them, like, you know, a lot of RPGs that I've played, that you have an enemy encounter and then it cuts to a battle sequence and then it'll cut back and you can't tell that you had battled, but here it, you know, just it feels more real that way, I guess.
Yeah, it's very smooth. How did you feel about the Millennium Fair?
I thought that was really fun. It was interesting, and it really carries over that like mystical feeling of things that are like, it feels like something very big and very important is going to happen. And I didn't even know what the game was about when I started playing it. So now that I've kind of learned about the, you know, time travel aspect and everything, like, I just thought it was really cool. I enjoyed the soda chugging.
Yeah, just mash that button.
Well, here's the thing. I've had to emulate it because I don't have a Super Nintendo.
Or $100.
So, yeah. So, speed button, and then, I drank 10 sodas every time I played that thing. I slammed them.
You just ended up with thousands of silver points.
So, for you to ask about the Millennial Festival, what is it that you find significant about it that you liked?
The Millennial Festival is one of the greatest openings to any Japanese RPG. There are things about it that have not yet come to light for you because you haven't played to these parts of the game. There is a specific fascinating scene that you're going to get to in probably about 30 minutes.
Okay.
That we'll talk about next time we talk about Chrono Trigger. But yeah, the Millennial Festival, from what you have seen, is like it gets you excited to go to it because you wake up and it's like the first thing your mom says. It's like, Chrono, come on, you got it, or whatever the fuck you called him.
Yeah.
Curt. You call him Curt, probably, right?
Actually,
I called him Wendy as well.
Yeah, everybody is Wendy.
It's a bunch of Wendy's.
It's a very confusing game. I'm having a hard time following it. My default name in games is Curt Cake, but in this game, I'm limited to the number of characters, so I just default to Cake in most games. My name is always Cake across the board.
Oh, nice. Okay.
When I have to limit myself to less than 8 characters.
So Cake's mom said, Cake, you got to go to the Millennial Fair. And it gets you excited. And she also tells you, like, be a good boy.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities, things to look at, things to see, soda to chug. I didn't even interact with everything at the Millennial Fair.
Yeah.
Because there's so much there that, I was trying to get to the meat of it. Yep. But it feels like there are opportunities there for fun. Yeah. There's like a race going on. There's a lost cat that you can look for. Did you look for the lost cat?
I did. I didn't, I don't know if you could, like, pick it up and find it or anything, but I did discover it running around.
Yeah.
It felt very...
You can eat a guy's lunch?
You can. I didn't know that. It feels very authentic. Anyone that's been to, like, a county fair has experienced this. Like, this isn't really huge. It's not really a big deal. But there's really a lot of stuff to take in, and you just kind of wander around, and like, even for a video game made in 1995, it still had a very real and authentic, like, I should explore this and look around before I jump right into the story.
Dude, this was something that my wife clued me in on. Whoa, what the fuck?
What?
There's a giant bug on the mixer.
Ah!
Do you see it?
I do.
It's crawling on my headphones and it's making sounds.
Ew.
Oh, man. What should we do?
I'll pause.
I cannot remember what I was talking about because of that fucking horrifying
something that
bug.
Megan had pointed out to you.
Something that Megan... Oh, I couldn't remember because it was completely unrelated to anything. Megan pointed out to me that that county fairs used to have strip shows at them.
Why has that changed?
County fairs used to have strip shows at them. I remember this because, or we learned this because we read this great profile piece in the Ballard, the Portland paper, the Ballard, about Jake something. Can't remember the guy's name, but he was a Hell's Angel. He's like this famous Hell's Angel from Maine. And one of the things that happened when he was young, I think, and he had this job for some kind of, I believe it was a car company, and these car manufacturer bigwigs came to town to meet with them, and this guy, he's very gregarious, he's very outgoing, he's very loud, and he kind of gets the party started. So they send these bigwigs out with him to the county fair, and they go see the strip show. And the guy, the future Hell's Angel guy, Jake something, I'm pretty sure. Jake gets on stage and fucks the stripper.
Oh.
And then he lost his job because word got around. This
stuff needs to come back. This is
So yeah, funny fact. I mean, did you find the strip tent at the Millennial Fair?
Is that a joke?
Yeah, that's a joke.
Okay, I was going to say no.
You get enough silver points, man. You can do whatever you want.
With the humor in this game, I I could very easily picture like a tent that you're not allowed to go into.
Yeah, by the way, guess what? In the Japanese version of the game, you're not chugging soda.
Oh.
Yeah, you drink a lot of beer.
There's a drinking competition in Harvest Moon 64.
Mm-hmm. Is it a soda drinking competition?
No, it's
or they had lifted the limitations a little bit.
They had not. It's on New Year's, so it's either wine or champagne, and basically throughout the year you have to drink so many alcoholic drinks throughout your farm year to build up a tolerance, and people get chipped away, and I think throughout the year you have to drink 9 to beat the town person who can drink the most before you.
Huh.
Pretty weird stuff. Japan, you crazy.
Japan, what are you doing?
I love these heavily Japanese influenced games that don't really get Americanized very well.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah, I love them too.
So
we haven't played very much of Chrono Trigger.
I think what we're getting down to is we have not experienced much of this
played
game.
that much of it, but we like what we've done so far.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Every aspect about it has been enjoyable, even if I don't I didn't love the battle sequence, and even from a more experienced player like yourself, it's that's kind of one of the tougher things to get into about it. It seems
I just hit the A button until it goes away.
Seriously, man. I figured out how to do magic attacks the other day, and I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, combination attacks.
Yeah.
There is a certain amount of importance put on figuring out enemy weaknesses. Like those henchmen guys are weak to magic, but strong to physical attacks. So there's some of that going on.
I think that
when we play Chrono Cross, though, Chrono Cross, in my opinion, has one of the best battle systems ever put in any Japanese RPG.
I do have a PS1, so if I can get my hands... I know some of those JRPGs on the PS1 are pretty hard to come across now. They can be expensive.
Chrono Cross got a Greatest Hits edition with the green siding on it, so that edition of it is a little easier to find.
I'll have to hit up the old World Zero, see what I can dig out of there.
Hit up the old World Star Hip Hop.
I think that the world of the Super Nintendo JRPG is such an interesting thing for me to get into, because before they knocked down the technological limitations of that console, before we said, we can make 3D games, they really pushed what video games could be to the max on on Super Nintendo, I feel. And I think that just some of the depth in this game, and some of the
art, the depth of the art, or
the
what?
Art, and how complicated they get, I think that
with regard to the art, or
with art and just the game mechanics, they start to deal with things like type advantage, and use just the fact that you can pick out I don't have a whole lot of experience with this particular game, so I don't know how.
To be honest, Chrono Trigger is on the simpler side.
Really?
Yeah.
I know, because I've played quite a bit of Earthbound, and I know that by the time you get to those games, it's there's just a lot to take in, a lot of weird game mechanics that you just have to adjust to and get used to. And I think that
speaking of which, Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross, by the way, is a lot of shit in that game.
One thing that I like about these types of games is that these are some of the best RPGs ever made. That's apparently what people think. But they each one seems to have its own little set of flaws too. And I like that they developed they fine-tuned these games so much that each one can be quite different while still being a JRPG, and then each one having its own kind of, it's really great, but in this game you have to deal with this shit all the time. In Earthbound, it's you'll have to find ATMs at really inconvenient times and withdraw money.
Dude, just like real life. So if that's a knock against Earthbound, then that's a knock against real life too. Yeah,
but but it's got to be more fun than real life because it's a video game.
Nope, Earthbound is all about representing the mundanity of real life. in JRPG systems, and having to go find fucking ATMs, stroke of genius. Absolute stroke of genius.
You know what I find to be the
calling home to save your game, stroke of fucking genius. I cannot wait to talk about Earthbound on this show.
My favorite Earthbound inconvenience is having an ability to warp places that you can't really use because it's like so hard to like. You have to get like a running start and have enough space to like get up to speed, or you hit the wall and it won't let you warp.
It's extraordinary.
What a great game. All right, next time we're just going to start. We'll just turn this into a Dreamcast.
We're going to play the first hour and a half of every JRPG ever.
And then we'll just move on from there.
Yeah.
So,
can I tell you what's so crazy about Chrono Cross, though?
Please do.
All right. The battle system in Chrono Cross, specifically. So, just like in Chrono Trigger, different attacks have different types attached to them. But what Chrono Cross has that Chrono Trigger doesn't have is that you have this little meter sort of thing up in the top right, where it like fans out, okay? And when you do an attack of a certain type, color enters from the bottom of it's like shaped like a baseball field. So color enters from the part of the field where the batter stands. And then when you do an attack of that type again, it pushes that color outward. And that represents the sort of aura of magic over the battlefield, which changes how effective those attacks are.
Really?
So if you do, let's say you do 3 attacks in a row of a certain type, then attacks of that type are more effective.
Oh.
So like if the whole field is red, then red aligned attacks work better. Or healing also works better, I'm pretty sure. I think items also have types.
That's interesting.
I don't know. It's been a while since I played Chrono Cross, but that game's fucking bananas.
I'll have to get my hands on it.
There's some good save point fuckery in that game too.
So, I mean, we're almost at an hour.
Right.
We've only played like an hour to an hour and a half of the game.
This is like I've played like 2.5 hours, but yeah.
Hopefully, our little bit here in Dreamcast was enough to hold you over until...
Hopefully people love Dreamcast, because A, that's half of what this episode was, and B, this time next year, that's all of what the show is going to be.
I was going to say, so far, I've been loving the Dreamcast and Dream Interpretation, so, unfortunately, we don't have, we're not getting paid any big bucks to do this, so the show kind of has to go the direction we feel like taking it.
The show is whatever we want it to be, baby.
If I had that sponsorship from...
Chrono Trigger.
If I had that Chrono Trigger money, I'd be really sticking to Chrono Trigger, but unfortunately, right now, Chrono Trigger, I think I just had a stroke, kind of gets in the way of my Fallout New Vegas playthrough, so...
Gets in the way of me reading Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah. We should just do... We'll do half an episode about New Vegas, and then half an episode about...
You don't want to fucking read Gravity's Rainbow, man. Come on, don't pretend. Gravity's Rainbow is my New Vegas, though. It's a thing that I just keep reading. Like, I finish it, and then I go right back to the beginning.
Isn't it interesting how you have those things? Where
this is my comfort zone.
It just never gets old.
I also do that with the Bible, but...
Yeah, and I just, like... It's just so strange that you kind of, like, develop those things where you just never get sick of it. My brother just loves The Hobbit. He's read all the Lord of the Rings stuff, but he just loves The Hobbit.
That's great.
He has told me that when he'll go to bed and just pick one of his favorite chapters. That's how well he knows that book. He just never gets sick of reading it.
Yeah.
And that's when every time I play Fallout New Vegas, I'm just like this calm washes over me as my courier opens his eyes and sees Doc Mitchell for the first time. I'm just like,
that's beautiful, man.
We're back in Good Springs, baby. Fresh slate. What kind of character do I want to be this time? So anyway, Chrono Trigger. We'll talk about Chrono Trigger.
It's a good game. This is the intro to Chrono Trigger.
We're gonna entitle this one B and C Tilde H episode 42.
Dreamcast episode 1
/ Dreamcast episode 1. The subtext for Dreamcast episode 1 is going to be Sea of Shit, and then the subtext for Chrono Trigger is this game's pretty good, we'll get back to it later.
Are we done?
We're done. We're gonna wrap this up before it gets too out of the... This has been great. This has been right on the line.
This has been a good podcast.
Next week, I'm very excited. We're going to be doing a musical episode again, talking about one of my all-time favorite albums, Pinata by Freddie Gibbs and Madlib.
When did this come out?
2014.
Okay.
So it's a freshie, an instant classic.
It's already
in my
one of your
opinion.
favorites. I have never heard anybody other than you talk about it.
Oh my god, you have to. Now, a few things I will. If you haven't listened to it yet, have you? So I will tell you, and I will tell the listener as like my only little pieces of advice for getting into this album is the first one is that Freddie Gibbs has some of the best flow of any rapper that has ever rapped. Mm-hmm. Now, it's so good that there's almost like a downside to it in that his
it ruins
flow
other rappers.
Is like it's almost hypnotic, and you sometimes it helps to listen to songs like. Listen to the album a couple times if you have the opportunity, because you'll like with me, I would just start to like fall into the rhythm of his vocal pattern and realize I hadn't even been picking apart what he has been saying. The second thing is that we have talked about the things that a rapper says versus the things that a rapper actually does or has done, and I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter.
We talked about that a lot with regard to Vince Staples.
Yeah. And I came up with Lil Wayne too. Of it doesn't matter. They're telling a story. They're performers.
Yeah.
That first and foremost, that's it. The thing that's interesting about Freddie Gibbs is that one of his nicknames is Gangsta Gibbs, and he was a real drug dealer, and I believe all of the features on this album are from rappers who have been very well known to have had very real lives in drug-related culture. Like Raekwon is on it, Danny Brown has a verse on it. All of them are very like we have slang rocks. So I think that's something. I don't think it makes it better as
That's pretty fucking early Danny Brown too.
Yeah. I don't think it makes it like it's better because it's real, but it's
something to keep in mind.
Interesting to note that it's a very drug dealer rapper performing with a lot of other drug dealers turned rappers.
Yeah.
Those are my two little things that I think will help give the album some context.
Interesting.
And
with regard to that flow thing, that's Vince Staples for me too, to a T. That describes my experience of listening to North North, particularly. Like a lot of other songs as well, but North North really, like, it's the second and third verses in North North are difficult for me to sometimes tell what's going on, even listening to it now, because I'm so hypnotized by what he's doing with just the rhythm of his words.
I love that.
Yeah.
You got your Vince Staples, your Biggies, and your Freddie Gibbs. Those are like my rappers that happens to me a lot with. So yeah, that's what we're doing next week. Right. Very excited about it. I hope you enjoy the album. I hope everybody enjoys the album. We're wrapping this up. Is this
wrapping it
up? All right. So thanks for listening. You can listen to more Ben and Curt Till It Hurts by subscribing to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. You can follow Ben and Curt Till It Hurts on Twitter at Ben_and_Curt. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. We'll see you guys next week when we talk about Pinata by Freddie Gibbs and Madlib.
And whatever fucking dreams we have.
Dreams we have between now and next week, we'll be doing that too. So thanks for listening, and good night.
Bye.